Hey everybody, welcome to Board Game Heaven. My name is Raymond, and in this video I'm taking a look at the two Heirs by Albi. And this is a game by Olda Rezzel, Ivan Dostal and Ondra Ciganek. And it is a game for 2 players, which can also be played solo, which plays in about half an hour for ages 10 and up. Now, before I start explaining how to play the game and sharing my thoughts on it, I'd like to ask you all to please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. That really does help the channel a lot. And there is also a Patreon page if you'd like to support what I do. And you can do so for as little as just €1 per month. And in return, you will get your name in the credits, access to some Patreon exclusive videos, and early access to my videos as well. All right, let's open up the box and set up a game. To set up the game, separate all the building tiles into 6 stacks with 9 tiles each based on the symbols in their top right corner. They are separated into 6 groups. There's travel, land and industry, trade and church, war, patrol, and crafts. The rulebook suggests that for your very first game, you use these 3 stacks: travel, land and industry, trade and church. Put the other tiles back into the box. Shuffle all of these cards together to start with one single pile to draw from. And then you start preparing the Royal Reserve. And in order to do that, you take the Royal Shield token, you toss it like a coin, and place it near the edge of the play area. The color of the crown, either blue or white, determines the starting player, and then you take the top 6 cards from the pile and form them into a circle, with the crown being part of that circle. So, for example, you put them down like this. Then you take the 4 normal troop tokens and place them inside the circle, 2 of each color. Next, you take the top tile from the stack, and that is your starting landscape. One player lets the other player select one of these 2 retinue tokens blindly, and then you place those on the starting tile. Now you're ready to play. Let's explain the rules. The goal of the game is, of course, to score more points than your opponent, and you will be drawing tiles from the Royal Reserve and placing those building tiles in the landscape. And all of these tiles have symbols on them explaining how they score points. And once the stack of landscape tiles runs out, then players will complete one last round, after which the game ends. Now, on a player's turn, that player will be taking a number of actions in any order. One of those actions is mandatory, and that is to take 1 tile from the Royal Reserve into their hand. And the other optional actions you can take is to play 1 or more building tiles from your hand and to move 1 or more of your troops. You cannot take more than 1 tile from the Royal Reserve on your turn, but you can play more tiles from your hand or play more than 1 troops. Now, the Royal Reserve here always has 7 slots, 6 landscape tiles, and this token. And a player has so-called influence depending on the number of troop tokens they have inside the Royal Reserve, plus 1. So in this case, both players start out with 2 tokens in the Royal Reserve. That means that they have an influence of 3, which means starting from this tile, you can select either this, or this tile, because your reach is 3. If at some point during the game you move one of your troop tokens towards the landscape, then your influence will decrease by that number of tokens. So if there's only 1 left there, your reach will be 2, which means you can only select the first 2 tiles next to this token. And the direction of that influence is always in clockwise order, starting from the token. And of course, your minimum reach is always 1 once you have removed all of your troops from here. And you can also place them back later, but once there's none in here, there's always the minimum of 1, so you can always take 1 tile. So let's explain those 3 actions in more detail. So the mandatory action, taking that 1 building tile and adding it to your hand, means simply that you check your influence. So at the start of the game, it's always 3, 2 tokens plus 1. And that means I can either pick this, this, or this tile and take it into my hand. So let's just say I wanted to take this tile. I simply take that, take it into my hand, and then I take this token, I flip it over and move it to this now empty spot. This indicates that I've already taken a tile and cannot do so again for the rest of the turn, because in this case I was the blue player, and this means the next player is the white player. Then any other empty spots get replenished from the stack here. And there is a maximum hand limit of 3 building tiles at the end of your turn. If you have any more tiles than that at the end of your turn, you have to remove them from the game. You simply return them to the box. Now the second action is again an optional action, and that's to play a tile from your hand onto the playing area. Now all of these tiles have a building cost. So this one has a cost right here in the bottom left. So let's take a few as an example here. So this one takes 1 wheat and 2 wood to construct. And for example, let's see, this one is 1 wood and 2 stone to construct in the bottom left there. And this one finally requires 3 wheat. So how do you get the resources needed to construct one of these buildings and put it into the landscape? Well, first of all, you have resources provided by the king. The royal reserve provides access to these resources according to your influence. And you can access these resources without taking these tiles. So for example, again, if my influence is still 3, now starting from the tile over here, that means I can get resources from this, this, and this tile, and the resource you get is simply the color of the tile. So this is green, that means wood. This is gray, that means stone, and this is yellow, that means wheat. So right now, from the king, I could get 1 wood, 1 stone, and 1 wheat. But I need 2 stones to build this building. But I also get resources from the troops in the playing area, in the landscape. So right now, my only troop right there is on this tile, and this is a yellow tile, so I would have 1 additional wheat at my disposal. Additionally, the Trade and Church set, which is the set with this coin icon in the top right here, which is recommended to use during your first play, also has these the farm, the quarry, and the sawmill, and those have these resources on them as well, which means that if this is your building, then you have these resources, 1 of each, at your disposal at all times without even having a soldier tile on them. So let's just say, for example, these 2 tiles would have been in a different order. That would mean that right now I would have an influence of 3, I would have wood and 2 stone at my disposal, plus a wheat from having my troops there. So 2 stone and 1 wheat would be enough to construct this building. And when you do construct a building, you choose a spot in the playing field that can be either orthogonal or diagonal to a tile that's occupied by 1 of my troops. So if I place it over here, for example, I could do that. And you always place your tiles with the images and icons facing you. That way you know that it's your tile, because the opponent's tiles will be upside down. You can also optionally play a tile from your hand upside down without paying any cost. So for example, if I had this in my hand and I could not pay this cost, I could choose, and if I didn't really want that tile, I could choose to place it upside down, again orthogonally or diagonally adjacent to a tile that has 1 of my troops on it. But of course, since there is no building on it, it wouldn't belong to any player and nobody would score any points from it at the end of the game. Now, when you choose to put 1 of the tiles from your hand face down into the landscape, then that means that the construction cost of 1 other building that you might build on that same turn is reduced by 1 resource of your choice. So to put that in example, once again, if this were the tiles in my hand, and these tiles were back here, and I wanted to construct this one. My influence is still 3. I'd have a wood, stone, and wheat here. I would need another stone. I still have a wheat here as well, but that's useless to me right now. So I could either, if I wanted to construct this as well, can do both. But if I wanted to construct this, I could place this one face down. Then I would have the 1 stone from the king, 1 wheat from either the king or from this tile. And then I need 1 more stone, which this tile would be the reduction cost. And it doesn't need to be the same type. So I could do this or put it there or anywhere I want it, as long as it's orthogonally or diagonally adjacent to a tile that has one of my troop tokens on it. The other way around works as well. If I wanted to build this for 2 wood, I'd only have the 1 wood here from the king. This is not wood, that's not wood. So I could construct this one face down and then place this one somewhere where I wanted it. So once you've built your buildings or expanded the landscape by placing a tile upside down, you can also optionally move 1 or more of your troops on the landscape or back to the Royal Reserve. So let's say that the landscape has grown a bit over time and it is now my turn again. Then I can now choose to move my troop token. So let's say I want to move this one. I can move it again orthogonally or diagonally to any adjacent tile. There are no tiles here, so I can't place my troop there, but I could place it at any one of those. And again, when my troop token is on one of those tiles, I also have access to the resource of that color. And remember that, so let's say these were tiles from the opponent. You can move your troop tiles to a tile that was constructed by the opponent, but I cannot move my troop tile to another tile that already has troops from the opponent. Only the starting tile can have that, and once 1 troop moves off, that rule's gone. There can only be a troop from 1 player on any tile. I can also deploy a troop from the Royal Reserve into the play area. Now I must deploy my troop to an unoccupied area, unoccupied tile, again either orthogonally or diagonally adjacent to one occupied by another of my troops already in the playing area. So in this case, if my troop was over there, I could place it on any of these tiles. So maybe I want it over here. But I can also withdraw a troop from the playing area to the Royal Reserve. However, I cannot withdraw my retinue troop. This one always stays in the play area, but I can retrieve my regular troops. So I could move this from the playing area back into the reserve, again increasing my influence. Every time you move a troop, you have to flip it over so you see the cross on the other side, indicating that that troop has already moved on your turn. Same if I move it from the reserve to the field or from the landscape back into the reserve. And then at the end of my turn, when I'm done, I can flip them back over again. And play continues like that, with players taking their turn, choosing one of the tiles within their influence, taking that into their hand, flipping over this tile to that spot, replenishing the empty spot with a new tile from the reserve. And once this entire tile stack is empty and the player picks a card into their hand, moves the token and takes the final tile, then that means every player takes one more turn and then the game ends and you score your points. And during the final turn, when tiles are removed, the circle of influence simply grows smaller. So let's explain scoring and how all these tiles work. Let's start with the travel tile set right here. So first of all, you have 2 tiles that are the inn, and you score 1 point for each tile in the same row or column as depicted on the tile. This has the row, this has the column, as the inn, with a maximum of 3 tiles in both directions. And the inn itself is also worth 1 point, which means if you have 3 tiles, for the example on this tile, to the left and to the right of this tile, then you score 7 points in total. And of course, any tile less than that is 1 point less. And this one has the same rule, but in a column, so vertically. The market tile scores 1 point for every tile that is only orthogonally directly adjacent to the market itself, and the market itself is also worth 1 point, so that's a maximum of 5 points. The pilgrimage sites, they all have these starting roads in all four the directions here on the tile, and they score a number of points equal to the number of tiles of the longest continuous road that is connected to the pilgrimage site, regardless of who owns the buildings on the road. So the pilgrimage site itself, again, also counts as a road, which means it scores 1 point, even if no other roads are connected to it. And for these two tiles, it also doesn't matter if the connected tiles belong to you or the opponent. Do note that the pilgrimage site itself acts as an end point, so this wouldn't connect one tile on one side with a road if this was this way, or better yet that way, because you can't have it sideways. But let's say it's the opponent's tile and this was here, and this was also the opponent's tile and this was here, then that wouldn't mean that this is a 3-tile road, because this is the end, and if this was all that was here, then it would score 2 points. So let's move on to the last buildings here, which is the robber barony, and it scores 2 points for each of your opponent's buildings orthogonally adjacent to the robber barony, and itself is again worth 2 points, just like the adjacent tiles, so this can get a maximum of 10 points. And all of this is of course explained with little icons. So this star means a victory point, a brown tile means a tile of any color, and this means the inn itself, which has this icon right here. So here you can see 3 tiles to the left, 3 tiles to the right, plus the inn itself are worth victory points. The land and industry tiles also have different manners of scoring. So these 3 all have this colored path depicted on this picture over here, this icon. This is the mine, has the gray path here. The cowshed has a green path, and the mill has a yellow path. And this means you score 1 victory point per every tile in that color, so that's gray, green, or yellow, within a contiguous area of tiles of that color that all have to be connected with at least one entire side, including your opponent's tiles, the tile itself, and any open terrain, so that means the flipped over tokens in that same contiguous area as well. These are encampments, and the encampments, they are worth 2 points at the end of the game, but you can optionally forego those points, flip over the tile at any point during the game to flip the royal shield token back to your color, effectively taking another turn picking a tile from the royal reserve. But you can only flip it over once per game, and you forego the victory points. The bakery, smithy, and the lodge each give you victory points for every building that has a matching background color. So if you have the bakery, for example, you get 1 point for each of your building that is a yellow tile, including the bakery itself. So this does the same for the gray tiles, and this for the green tiles. The trade and church set also have different means of scoring. This is the farm, the sawmill, and the quarry, which do not get you any victory points, but you do get an additional resource simply from owning this tile. And they do not need to be occupied by a troop token. But if you do have a troop token at any point on one of these tiles during the game, you not only get the, in this case, the stone from the quarry, but also a stone from having your troop there, so you get the resource twice. The trading posts here are not worth any points themselves, but will get you 3 victory points for every type of these tiles that you own. So that can be the farm, which is this bag icon, the mill, which is this log icon, or the quarry, which is this square stone icon. And of course, all of these will get you points for those tiles of the other color. So this is the gray one. This does not score points for the quarry, etc. And finally, there is the cathedral, and those simply score 5 victory points for simply owning them at the end of the game. The war tiles, as the name suggests, have more conflict between players because these are siege towers, and if 2 of your siege towers are orthogonally adjacent to one of your opponent's buildings, you may optionally destroy that building. And if you do, you flip that building face down, and that tile is now considered open terrain, and the effect is triggered when the second siege tower is placed. Destroying it is voluntary, and a single siege tower does not have any effect. Siege towers themselves are not worth any points, and that is where the stronghold comes in, because there's 3 of these strongholds and they score 1 point for each of your siege towers and strongholds in the play area, including the tile itself. The patrol tiles have watchtowers and garrisons, and the watchtowers score 1 point per tile of the same type as that watchtower, so the same color, that is either in the same column or row as the watchtower. And that includes your own buildings, your opponent's buildings, and open terrain, and the watchtowers themselves are also worth 1 point. The garrisons, they score 2 points, 2 victory points that you can see here on that icon, for all the watchtowers, yours or your opponents, that are diagonally in line with your garrison, regardless of their distance and also regardless of color. Finally, there's the crafts tiles, and these have potteries, coopers, and basket shops, and these guild halls right here, and they score points as follows. So these either score points for the other types of colors in pairs, so in this case this is a green tile, and it will score 3 victory points for each yellow and gray tile that is diagonally adjacent to this tile. This card does it orthogonally adjacent, and they also always score for pairs of colors that are not their own. So for example here, this Cooper's place here, they score points for any pair of green and gray tiles that are diagonally adjacent, and that's 3 points per pair. So in this case, if this was the layout, then here would be a green tile or diagonally adjacent and a gray tile, so that is 1 pair, that will be 3 points. In this case, it's orthogonally adjacent, so again these 2 tiles would score points. And the guild halls, they boost the score of one type of these buildings. So for example, this one boosts the point of the pottery by 1 victory point per pair, so they score 4 instead of 3 points, and this one does the same for the coopers and for the basket shops. And the back of the rulebook has a handy summary of all of those icons that you will find on the tiles. So again, the star is a victory point. Brown means any tile, any color. And then you have, of course, green, yellow, and gray, which means the tile of that color. This, again, is the both. So this could be any gray or any yellow tile. This means any tile connected by a road. And again, this can have a color. This is any building on a green tile in this case. That is of course a specific building if it has the building's icon that is found in the top left corner of that building tile. This also means the opponent, so tiles owned by the opponent. The black one means owned by yourself. The arrow means to flip a tile, and this simply means a direction, which in this case is diagonal but can also be orthogonal. And the game also comes with a handy scoring pad, so at the end of the game you can just simply check all of those pads. So if you've played, for example, with this, and this set, those are the icons that you find in the top right corner of the tiles that you've played with. You always play with 3 sets. So then you simply go past all of these boxes, check boxes, to see what you scored, and you fill in your score, you add that up, and finally you add up your total score to see how well you did. Finally, the game also comes with a solo variant, so you can play this game on your own, and all you need in addition to what you've already seen are these tokens. So you get a bunch of these treasure tokens, which are double-sided, and there is one scaffolding token, and it has its own setup with 3 difficulty levels. And you're basically playing versus an AI, an opponent called Henry, and I'll leave all of those rules for you to discover on your own. It's just 1 leaflet, and that is all there is to it. So those were all the rules. Let's go to my final thoughts. So my final thoughts on the 2 Heirs by Albi, and I'd like to thank Albi for giving me a copy to review. That is very much appreciated. Let's start with the components. So the components are pretty good. The tiles, which is most of the game, of course, are nice and thick, nice and sturdy, good quality, clear printing of what's on them. The color coding is also very clear, so all of that works really nicely. You get some tokens. The smaller tokens for the solo variant are kind of tiny and fiddly, but I mean, they do the job. And we have a score pad, which is very handy for scoring in the end, because there's a lot of things you need to track. You have a nice and big king tracker marker that keeps track of which tiles you took, and then you flip it over to also indicate that you already took a tile and play or are going to place it on the player field. So those tokens are fine. The only gripe I have with the components are these little shield tokens, because for some reason they wanted the blue and the white to be the 2 heirs colors, the colors of the kingdom. And I find these tokens to be very confusing, because there is a white shield with a blue border and a blue shield with a white border. And more than once we had these on the tiles, of course, we mistakenly, took the wrong token, or thought that was our, for example, this was my token, and then I looked at this one, I thought this was mine, and I would place troops next to them, or calculate my resources because my troops were there, but they weren't. It's the other one. So blue and white and blue, that just does not work that well. It's just, in your mind, they're almost the same. They're like the inverse of each other, and like they belong to the same faction. So it would have been a lot better had they made just one token entirely blue and entirely white, or just use the same frame border. If you have a white token and a blue token, give them all a gold border, because these starting tokens that you have, your Vanguard or whatever it's called, these are clear. This is a white one, this is a blue one, and they have a golden border. But once you make those borders also white and blue, it's super confusing. I wish they hadn't done that, and that was very annoying. So those are really the only components I have an issue with in the game, but the quality overall is good. The text and the icons on these tiles are okay. They're pretty small, so you might need glasses if you're farsighted. Reading glasses to check out what they are. I even sometimes need to just remove my glass to see what's on them, because it's pretty small, but it's doable. Especially these little icons in the top right corner are absolutely tiny. And that's the icons. You kind of need to separate them into stacks, because there's, I think, 6 different types of tiles and you play with 3. So you mix them up, and so separating those is a bit of a peering at the icons, but it's doable. The other icons are okay. They shouldn't have been smaller, and preferably they would have been a little bit bigger. But anyway, the artwork is nice. Does remind me of a lot of Euro games, tile placement games like Carcassonne and such. You have these, or Catan, you have these medieval looking villages and buildings and castles and whatnot, and farms and mills. So the art is pretty nice. I do like the art on the box though. That looks really cool and very appealing to me. So that's also well done. The theme is okay. You're basically two heirs of a kingdom. The king has passed away, and you're trying to divide the land by going out and literally claiming land from the kingdom for yourself and then placing them on the player field. And you're trying to score points by connecting them in a good way, in an opportune way, because all of these tiles have certain scoring conditions, and some of them require you to link as many tiles of one color. So there's the yellow ones, the green ones, and the gray ones, and linking them together to form a big patch of that color can give you a lot of points. There's also cards that give you points for placing them in the opponent's area, because you can easily tell which is yours and which is the opponent's, because they're simply upside down. They face towards the player that owns them. So if it's upside down, then it's not yours. That's very simple. And you're trying to sometimes connect roads, because sometimes that will get you points as well, trying to make a road as long as possible. And that is very clever. I do like that. But yeah, thematically, I think that works. I guess, yeah, I mean, yeah, it does work well with this game, I think. I don't know if it adds a whole lot to the game, because you're dividing up the land, as it were, but you're taking them from the kingdom and then you're placing them back in the kingdom, so that mechanism is a bit strange thematically. But I do think it's a fun theme. So then the gameplay, like I said, you're collecting these tiles and trying to make them into combos that score a lot of points for you. And you might go after a single color, or maybe two. Trying to go after three colors might be a bit more challenging, because then you get a scattering of small numbers of points. Whereas if you go after one color, you might get a big chunk of points, but only have that one color. And yeah, it all depends on which cards are drawn from the stack and put into the kingdom. And then, you know, where this kingdom tile is, and your influence on the kingdom determines how many tiles that you have influence over, so which tiles you can choose. And if you withdraw your troops from the kingdom to go out into the lands, then you have less influence, so there's less tiles that you can draft. And if you bring all your troops back, then you have more influence but less resources, because of course you can have resources from the lands that your troops are on. So that is very interesting. I like that little puzzle there. You're constantly thinking, okay, so do I first draft a tile, choose one of them that I have influence over, and then place it right away? Or do I have to withdraw some of my troops from the kingdom, put them on the tiles so that I have more resources, so that I can actually play these tiles? There is of course a hand limit for your tiles as well, but usually you try to just play them as quickly as possible to get those points in before the opponent places a tile in a spot that you had wanted to take, because that placement is very important here. So there's a lot of things to consider. I do like that puzzly aspect, and all these tiles do something different. At the start of the game, you might think it's a bit daunting to remember all of those tiles and what they do, but they're not that difficult. They're all explained on these 2 pages and a page here, but you're not using all of them. So you have, so let's see here, you have the travel tiles, land and industry, trade and church, war, patrol, and crafts. So there's 6 different types of tiles, and you're always playing with just 3 of them. So if you have this open on the table and you're just looking over those 3 types that you've mixed into the game, then you will probably very quickly remember what they do, and you can easily just quickly look it up in this reference. And that's what we did during the first game, and during the second game you do that a lot less, because you find that you will retain in your memory what they do. So in the end, it's not that complex to remember. It just feels like a game that you need to play once before everything truly clicks, but it is a very fun experience. The replayability is also very good because, like I said, there are 6 different tiles of cards that you separate before you play. You pick 3 and you shuffle those together, and that's the tiles you play with until the stack runs out and all the cards or all the tiles are in the land. And yeah, so the replayability is pretty high. So you're playing a different game with different kinds of abilities every time, and your strategy will be different, and you might be going for different colors. You know, you might be just trying to focus on 1 or 2 colors, which also is a strategy that works, or you're just trying to use all the colors because you do need the resources, of course, but you can move your troops freely across the land. You can put them on your opponent's tiles as well and then get that resource. So yeah, there's a lot of things to take in, which makes it a bit puzzly. I do like that. And yeah, the replayability is very good because, you know, that puzzle is different every time. And I do enjoy that a lot. In the end, I would say, well, there is some language dependency before I forget. Not a whole lot, because the tiles only use icons. So basically everything is language independent, but you do need, of course, the rule book in your language, which I think you can find online. This is an English version. And so the references here, you do need to really learn what they do, all these tiles and all these references. But if you have a sheet that you can download perhaps with a different language, or you have translated it, then that's really all you need. The game itself, the tiles and everything is fully language independent. So that is a thumbs up, although you do need to, like I said, remember what's going on. So in the end, again, I do find this a very enjoyable game. It's a nice puzzly game, but it's only for 2 players. So if you're looking for a game that does something similar, what comes to mind, of course, is Carcassonne. Although Carcassonne is a very simplified game. There's not that many choices to make in Carcassonne. You're drawing a tile, you're putting a tile down, and then you decide if you put a meeple down or not on that tile, and in which role you put that meeple. This is, of course, a lot more complex, but it only plays for 2 players or solo. So you need to keep that in mind. Another game that comes to mind is Small Islands by Lucky Duck Games, which I find is a lot more interesting than Carcassonne, because it's also a little bit more complex. There's more choices to make, more things to consider, and that does play for more than 2 players. So if you're looking for a tile-laying game with some resources and some combos that you want to make for scoring points, there are other games that do the same, and they do it for more than 2 players. But if you are specifically looking for a 2-player game, or you mostly play your games with 2 players, then this is definitely something I would consider checking out. Try before you buy for this one, but I do enjoy it. I am giving it a thumbs up. I think it is a very interesting game, very puzzly aspect, and I like that a lot. So that was my review of the 2 Heirs. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Please also check out my Patreon page by clicking the link in the description below, or the icon at the end of this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Board Game Heaven.